something I know that very near and dear to your heart and is a driving force behind what you do. And that's your relationship with your brother. I'm getting goosebumps a little bit. And, he passed. He struggled with drug use, and he was very close with you, and you learned a lot. And from the tragedy, and are now, it's a calling that you bring to the world. Can you just share with us that journey and how you integrate the lessons you've learned there with the mental health aspect, the emotional aspect, and connecting your heart to this high pressure, high performing elite world that you live in and that you coach in and that you support?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Thank you for teeing it up. You know, we're time sensitive here, so I can't go into my full story, but my professional tennis
Well,
journey.
I will just say this, Jeff, take your time. Take your
Okay.
time. It's
Well,
your
my
time.
professional tennis journey was a fascinating one. I wasn't supposed to be a pro tennis player. I wasn't even supposed to be good enough to go to Stanford. I found my way at Stanford. I transformed my serve in college. I grew 3 inches. I went from being at the bottom of the lineup to the top of the lineup to being an All American to a team captain playing for the greatest college tennis coach of all time. I learned many leadership lessons as an 18, 19, 20, 21-year old under the greatest coach of all time in tennis in college. And then I go on the pro tour and I shoot up the rankings and I play Michael Chang in front of 25,000 people. If you talk about a pressure cooker, you're walking out on that stage in front of 25,000 and millions watching on TV, and your idol, John McEnroe, is announcing the match. And I always tell people that, after I won the first set against Michael Chang, the dominant thought in my head was, thank God you didn't embarrass yourself tonight. And I share that because most of us are extraordinary in different ways, but we can also be ordinary in our thinking. And it was that limiting belief that kept me from possibly being the number 2 player in the world. And that really became kind of when my eyes started opening to the mental side of things. And hey, I've got to fix these things. And then when my body started breaking down at the age of 25, I had 2 surgeries before the age of 25 when I had signed with an agent and my career was about to go like this. The disaster struck. So now I'm rehabbing. And that was when I went to my first yoga class at 24 years old. I started eating organic food before it was considered cool.
And just a side note, for a college student in California at Stanford to have not attended a yoga class until they were 24, that's a whole separate breakout session story.
I didn't go to Berkeley. I went to Stanford. That's the difference.
You went to the other side.
I'd have hair down here and I would have been certified in Ashtanga yoga. But yeah, so I just dove deep into why my body was breaking down, why I had these limiting beliefs. And through this intense study, not knowing that 25 years later I would be teaching this to leaders, I broke the top 100 in the world for the first time at the age of 30. At the time, I think I was the oldest American to break the top 100 for the first time ever. So a lot of superstars, they break the top 100, like Andre Agassi, when he was 18. It took me 7 years. So there's a story in there around perseverance and resilience. And that's probably what's on the back of my jersey, is resilience and perseverance. So it's no accident that I'm teaching this today and have that DNA from playing tennis. You know what it's like to lose tennis matches, lose points, have to bounce back every point to come back. It's just in my DNA. But a turning point in my life took place when I was 34 years old. And I was burned out and stressed out from playing 11 years on the tour, traveling alone in hotel rooms, not making a lot of money, just battling out there. And so that's why I think from that standpoint, I can really relate to people that are burned out and stressed out, because I've lived it. I've been in between the lines, getting bloody and getting sweaty and dust all over me trying to figure this out. But that turning point at 34 was when I walked into my brother's bedroom. He was 17 at the time, a high school senior, and he was passed out on the floor, foam coming out of his mouth, a white foamy substance, dribbling out of his mouth. And he was overtaken by a cocktail of drugs. And that was the beginning of this wild journey that I went on with my brother. It landed him in prison for 4 years. I was coaching him while he would call me from the prison house phone every week. Like, what do I do next? How do I change my life? I gave him Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And so we went on like a 17-year journey in and out of addiction. And so I've seen firsthand where a family member who was at rock bottom, 50 days in solitary confinement, 4 years in prison, transforms his life in prison, body, mind, and soul. I got to watch it firsthand and learn from him. I learned just as much from my clients. I learned just as much from Eric as I teach, as I share. And he gets out of prison and he wins his own TED Talk. He wins a speaking contest, 600 people. He's first place. He gets his own TED Talk within 2 years of getting out of prison. So he was going like this with his trajectory. And unfortunately, the addiction started to overtake him, the pressure of success. It came too fast. He didn't have that foundation. And while I tried to give him the foundation, there were some leaks in the dam, if you will, around the addiction. And we ultimately lost him just over a year ago and to addiction. I think the lesson here is that, at least for me, is that I've seen what it's like to play at the highest level in sport and how hard it is and the pressure and to be able to overcome it and move through it. And then I've also seen someone succumb to the extreme pressure. So really what this is about, Seth, is helping people understand that pressure is unavoidable. We will be experiencing pressure and stress in our personal and professional lives. It's how we navigate it. It's how we deal with it. It's how we learn to decrease it, how we get into our bodies and our hearts and our breath. And we come from a more of a heart-centered place rather than ego, where we're looking for external validation outside of ourselves. And so that extreme perspective, I think, makes me a unique coach and speaker.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for sharing that. I know it's not easy, but I also know that you're called to. So it's like kind of a duality there.
It's
Um,
tricky.
Probably
Yes.
doesn't get easier. Um, you know, and a couple of things, young men, I think in particular, there's an appetite and a real hunger for guidance, a Sherpa, a mentor, a
Yeah.
coach, call it what you like, a principal, your little league coach, whatever it is. That I don't want to sweep society, but I think that if there was more of that, more volume of that for young men, I think it would make an impact. And, Eric's contribution goes far beyond, him being with us. And literally, he's with us right now in this podcast.
That's right.
I'm struck by the precariousness and the fragility of it all. Because 50 days in solitary, I mean, I hear the words, I understand the language. I can't even like conceive, right? And that's the power of this spirit and these emotions and the pressure. And when we fall down, and here you have somebody who is so strong, so willful, and yet so fragile, and the situation has become so precarious. And I think that part of the gift is, and part of the distinctions that you're providing to people, albeit we hope not as tragic, um, have a profound impact at whatever level. It could be a promotion, it could be a job interview, it could be a performance report, it could be an education avenue you want to take to expand your capacities.